having a conversation earlier, and this video came up, so I'm going to go ahead and shoot it while I'm thinking about it. Um, and this video title is very clear what it means. I'm going to talk about why I don't consider myself OSR. I am not an OSR player. I am not an OSR GM. I am not part of the OSR. I do not consider myself as such. Um, that is not to impinge anybody who is OSR, anybody who enjoys OSR games, anybody who considers themselves part of that movement, part of that renaissance. It is simply to explain that I don't consider myself part of it. Side note, my virtual cam is having some issues right now, so I'm not going to have any virtual cam up right now. Unfortunately, I don't know why it's acting so weird, but I have to take a harder look and see if I can figure out why it's acting up. Um, anyways, long story short, uh, guys, so a couple of reasons that I don't consider myself OSR and why I think it's important to understand why I'm not OSR, why I'm not a I'm just not part of the OSR movement. I'm not part of the OSR contingent. Um, I'm going to start the first one. I'm going to start very simply by stating kind of clearly and unequivocally, guys, I don't play a lot of OSR. I don't. I just don't. Um, while I have OSR games I enjoy, uh, I don't really play them. I don't play, Swords and Wizardry. I don't play Ostrich. I don't play Lamentations all that much. I don't play OSE that much. I just don't play the games. I don't write for them. I don't create modules for them. I don't do any of that. I absolutely uh, do enjoy Lamentations. I do enjoy OSE in particular, those two in particular, when I play them. But if I'm picking a fantasy game up, I have a laundry list of OSR games that I will play, or games I will play before I play OSR. Um, a couple of reasons for this. The largest one being I kind of am D&D out in general, and since OSR is very heavily based on D&D, I just don't enjoy it as much as I enjoy other fantasy games. Um, that is a huge thing for me. I really enjoy Uh, you know, I love Dragon Warriors. Dragon Warriors is great. I like Pendragon. I like One Ring. I love, Fantasy Hero. I really enjoy these other fantasy games, and I'm going to jump on those games and play and run them before I play or run OSR, um, because I enjoy them so much. Uh, Again, that's not saying that there's anything wrong with the OSR. Like I said, Lamentations, for example, is a great rule system, and it does a lot of cool things, and it has a lot of good, unique rules and fun rule sets and rules sections that I will gladly tell people if you're looking for a great OSR, rule system, go to this rule system or go to this one or whatever. Because I've read several of the OSR games. I own Ostrich, I own For Golden Glory, I own OSE, I own Lamentations. I own a bunch of these games. I just don't play them. It's just not what I play. That's the first thing, big thing. The second reason I kind of don't play them outside of the fact that I have other games I prefer is, and I'm kind of D&D out. They're kind of tied together. Is I'm also generically speaking, a lot of OSR is fantasy based, and I'm kind of fantasied out. Um, I don't. I'm kind of done with fantasy for a while. I want to play some different worlds. I want to play some modern games. I want to play some sci-fi games. I'm even running a Deadlands game. Uh, I'm running a lot of games that are not heavily fantasy based, um, because I'm kind of fancied out. I have run so much fantasy RPGs that are so many, so much bad grammar, so many fantasy RPGs that I realistically just am not enjoying running them right now. That does not impinge the OSR movement, um, because the OSR movement is what it is, and it's a perfectly functional, perfectly good thing. Um, it is a huge part of the hobby, and I realize that, but for me, it's not. It's not a big part of my collection. It's not a big part of what I enjoy. It's not what I cut teeth on. Um, and it's just not what it's not really where I want to be. Um, the second thing with it that I don't consider myself OSR for is, guys, I'm not really a rules light GM and player. I can play rules light. I can run rules light. I can do all that. I'm very competent at it. Don't get me wrong. That sounds very arrogant, but I am competent running rules light, um, and playing it. But I prefer rules medium games. Occasionally, I'll play and run some rules crunchy games like Rollmaster or say Anima or something like that. But I really prefer a medium level of crunch, where there's some flexibility in the rules, but the rules really kind of dictate the game, um, because it saves me a lot of headaches, from having to do extra work to on the fly figure things out and stuff like that. And I have my own set of reasons why I am that way, but that's just how I am. I prefer rules medium games, and rules medium games tend to. If you look at my history of what I've run in the past, I run a lot of them. I run a lot of rules medium to rules heavy games, um, and for me, rules light is just it's not as much fun to me. It's just not. I also tend this is another thing that OSR does that I'm not a big fan of. I tend to run a lot of licensed gaming. Um, I don't know if you guys know this about me or not. I'm a huge IP based RPer. I love IP based games. One Ring is a great example. I love the One Ring. I ran the first edition. I have not got around to the second edition yet, but I will at some point, get into running it. But I absolutely adore, One Ring. I love Star Wars. All the Star Wars games I've played, I absolutely love the daylights out of them. I am a huge, huge fan of IP based games. Um, and again, that's a personality thing for me. That's not OSR is bad at it or whatever, because you can run whatever you want in OSR games. You could take a game like Worlds Without Numbers and run a Star Wars esque game in it. Um, you could take something like that and do it. Um, I just don't. I don't do that. I take the rules that are written for the settings and I use them. I run. I'll run Pendragon, which is King Arthur IP role playing, rather than using a generic fantasy system to run a King Arthur esque game. I'm going to run Song of Ice and Fire, using the system by Rob Schaub, because I prefer that system because it has a lot of rules that are integrated into the system that reflect the world and things like that. So I'm a very IP driven GM as well. Uh, and OSR just doesn't really have IP based games. And that's something that, sorry guys, I told you every time I do one of these videos, I swear to God, uh, it's just something that I just do and I enjoy, and I will continue to enjoy until I drop dead, I think, because there's a lot of great IPs out there. And that's just something that I do and I enjoy. So OSR is just those are two big reasons, and then the other one of the other reasons I'm just not considering myself OSR and OSR adjacent would be the fact that I am just not. I'm not. I'm going to say this cautiously because I have a lot of friends that are OSR uh, adjacent, at least OSR adjacent, if not directly involved in OSR. I find a lot of the OSR community insufferable. Um, that that does not reflect on any individual. Um, that reflects on the community as a whole. And I've been part of lots of communities for different games, different game systems, different game types. Um, and I don't like the attitude that I see a lot from some of the bigger people that supposedly want to represent the OSR. Um, I don't like their attitude. I don't like the way they carry themselves. I don't like the way they talk about other games, other gamers, the way they carry their thought processes, the way they talk about their way of gaming is the only way to do things. One true wayism is an absolute blight to me. I despise it with a passion. Um, and I find the OSR community writ large to be kind of obnoxious at times. Um, and that's just how I feel about it. Again, does not reflect on any one individual per se. Um, it's just something that I've noticed, something that I've interacted with, uh, that I don't care for. I don't like. I, um, you know, I I had the same feeling towards OSR. I don't like a lot of the people involved in that for the same reasons. I think they're obnoxious. The idiots that used to argue over one-to-one time all the time, and try to bludgeon people into accepting one-to-one time as gospel truth and all those kind of things. I don't like that type of attitude, and I think there's a lot of people in the OSR that think that way. They think, oh, if you're not playing OSR, you're not really role playing or something. And I'm like, man, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. I don't have to play the way you play. Uh, I know it's a harsh thing to say, but it is something I have encountered. Um, but like I said, I've also encountered plenty of OSR guys that are good guys. But it makes it hard to want to be part of a movement where kind of what, for lack of a better way of putting it, the people that supposedly represent the upper echelon of the movement, or they present themselves as the upper echelon of the movement, are obnoxious and just absolutely grating. I don't want to be part of that movement. I just don't. um, as far as how I view gaming, as a general rule, um, gaming to me is a hobby. It is meant to be fun. And if the game you're playing at your table works for you, it's the right game for you and your group. Even if I don't like the game. Um, take example, 5th edition, 5.5 D&D. I personally, Clay, I will not play as you say, and you know it. Um, uh, but if you take like 5.5 D&D, which I absolutely despise, I am absolutely adverse to the game. But if a group is playing 5.5 D&D and enjoying it, I am not going to tell them they're not allowed to enjoy it. That is not my place in the hobby. I have my own groups that I run. I have my own way to run games, and if you sit at my table and you don't enjoy the way I run games, find a group that you mesh with better. I'm not changing the way I run because somebody has a problem with it. I've been running games for a long, long time. I promise. I'm set in my ways at this point in a lot of things. Um, so that's a big turn off for me. Like I said, in the OSR community, is just kind of some of the behavior of some of the people. Um, and I don't want to be associated with it. I just don't. I don't want to be associated with certain people. I don't want to be associated with a movement that fairly or unfairly is seen that way. Um, I just don't. I just don't. I don't want the drama. I've told you guys this on videos before. My goal for Legacy is to be drama free, and one of the ways to stay drama free is stay away from the drama. So I kind of do that with OSR. I kind of stay away from the drama. Um, and then one of the last reasons I don't consider myself OSR is, honestly, it just doesn't appeal to me on a personality level. Um, it is it's basically the same game being published over and over and over and over. That's how I feel about it. It From a practical viewpoint, what OSR people should be doing is producing splat books and lore books and world books for existing games rather than trying to rewrite the same game over again. Occasionally, I think something will come along that will break the mold, a la Shadow Dark, but very rarely does that happen anymore in the OSR. There's nothing new under the sun in it. It just doesn't appeal to me. I don't want another 0 edition clone. I don't want another variant of 1st edition, mixed with basic or whatever people are trying to do lately. I just don't want that. I have limited gaming budget, and I'm going to put that towards games that I actually want to engage with. All of that being said, guys, do not take this as an indictment that OSR is not worth investigating and playing in. It absolutely can be. Again, if it scratches the itch for you, by all means enjoy it. Just know that if you're coming to this channel expecting me to, basically praise every OSR game to high heaven, it isn't going to happen. I very rarely will talk about OSR games because they just aren't in my wheelhouse. Um, I am an esoteric and OOP small press player. That's what I do. Um, I have a collection of extremely awkwardly small games on my shelf, um, that vary in, themes and everything else. But absolutely just I don't have space to keep buying game books that are basically the same game over and over again with some tweaked mechanics. Um, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm just not going to do that with myself. Um, if if you want to play OSR, I can give suggestions. By all means, I can give plenty of good suggestions. I can give you plenty of good direction. I know plenty of people that play OSR that tell me all the time about how much fun they're having with it. I can tell you what I hear from other people. Um, don't expect to come onto this channel and expect me to make a video about the wonders of Shadow Dark or the wonders of OSE, because I'm not going to do that. Those games have plenty of channels, plenty of blog posts, plenty of podcasts that talk about them and do interviews with the creators and all that stuff. I am more interested in talking to people like Rob Schaub, uh, Steve Long. Uh, you know, I want to talk to those guys. I want to talk to the Quasi Real guys. I need to actually. I'm on their Discord. I need to see if I can catch up with them. I'd love to sit down and talk to them about Mythcraft. I'd love to sit down and talk to the Last Ark guys. um, sorry guys, I'm choking on something in the air. I don't know why I keep choking. Um, but that's what I want to do. I want to talk about these games that don't get the love they deserve, that don't have a lot of attention being paid to them. There's not really a light on them. I can go through a list of names of games, and most of them most people have never heard of. But I can also tell you guys, find a game you like. If it's OSR, great. If you're an OSR player, great. Keep enjoying it. Just know I'm not an OSR gamer. I am not an OSR GM. I am not going to sit there and fellatio them as if they're the second coming, because to me they're not. There are better games out there. There are games that do more for me and scratch a bigger itch for me. Uh, and at the end of the day, that's how I view the hobby itself. I do think the OSR has done a great job kind of advancing the hobby through some of the recent years and some of the recent drama and stuff. OSR has kind of withstood the outside pressures, which has been good because it's also helped bring in a lot of players that decided to leave behind games like Fifth Edition and Pathfinder and other systems that were creating drama and things like that. We all know the horror stories that we read about those companies and stuff. Um, I'm not going to get into the drama, but when people start saying, "Well, I'm sick of Fifth Edition because of what Wizards did last week or whatever," OSR was there to catch them and bring them back into the fold and help them find a game that scratched the itch of playing D&D without having to be associated with what they disliked about Wizards. And that was great. That was a great thing. But like I said, just I really hope you guys understand better why I'm not talking a lot about OSR, why I'm not constantly praising it, why I'm not always running OSR games, why I'm not, why aren't you running Lamentation? Why aren't you running OSE? Why aren't you running Swords and Wizardry or, Osric or, any of these other OSR games, Basic Fantasy, I just don't, I don't really care for them that much. Um, I'll play them if I get a chance and there's nothing else for me to play, I'll play them. But honestly, guys, just know I am going to play. If you sat down and said tomorrow you can play OSE or you can play Desolation, I'm playing Desolation. Okay, that's just all there is to it. Mostly because Desolation is a criminally underrated game that absolutely is ridiculously overlooked. If you're ever curious, it's produced by the same people that did Hollow Earth Expedition, uses the same core system, the Ubiquity system. Need to do an actual one-shot review of that game because that game is bloody excellent. But that all being said, guys, like I said, hopefully you guys have a better view of how I view OSR, how I view myself. Um, and like I said, don't take anything I've said in this video as a personal insult to you or your friends. I've just had especially in regards to the fact that I find the community to be slightly obnoxious. because it's not directed at any one person. It's directed purely at the idea that I do not like the, like I said, for lack of a better way of putting, the faces of the OSR being the way they are. They're the people that front face it and they pretend like they run it or something. And I could do a whole video on how much I can't stand people who pretend to front face the RPG hobby because they don't represent most gamers. And I know that. But it still rubs me the wrong way when they're out there trying to stir up drama. They're out there picking fights, and they're out there, doing stupid stuff and making themselves obnoxious and unbearable because it does suck away my ability to enjoy that part of the hobby. But anyways, guys, as always, thoughts, questions, comments below. And as always, I will happily address them. Just follow the 3 rules: no ad hominems, no picking fights, and don't leave college dissertations. Other than that, guys, hope you guys have fun.